Hello and welcome to another episode of the Pen and Heel podcast. I'm your host, Javeria Fatima Zaidi, and founder of Pen and Heel. As an expressive writing coach, I empower highly sensitive women on their journey to fulfillment, goal achievement, and personal development. We achieve these things, we try to work on these things by harnessing the transformative power of expressive writing. I am extremely excited today to welcome someone very special and close to my heart onto the podcast. But before I introduce her, I want to ask you, the audience, a question. Do you remember what you were doing on September the 1st, 2008? I remember what I was doing. I was joining a bank in Dubai. At that time, I was 20 years old, and I had one person in my life that I could call a friend. I was an extreme introvert, also a highly sensitive person, of course, and that doesn't help. So when I joined my office on the first day, I was very nervous. And that's where I met Mehvish. She also joined us on the same day. And I am so happy to say that it's been 15 years since that day. And she has joined the ranks of my closest friends. Mehvish is an entrepreneur. She is the lady, the superwoman behind the book retailer Overbooked at M. She is a book blogger. She is a homeschooling mom. She's a coach for homeschoolers and for businesswomen. And she is, she is, I've often said this to her. I don't know if I've said this to you, actually, Mehvish, but I've often thought this about her, that she is a superwoman. So I haven't prepared too much for this podcast. I wanted to keep this as natural as possible. Please join me in welcoming Mehvish onto our podcast. Mehvish, how are you feeling?
Super cool, Alhamdulillah. And with all the adjectives that you've described me, I think I'm not really sure if I'm there, but all that we know is that we're trying. And I think it's an honor and it's a privilege to have such an amazing friend that I found in you and best friend. I should rather say that, Alhamdulillah. And we're so similar, but yet so different. And I think that's the reason we kept on for so long. So I'm really happy to be on your podcast. I'm really wishing it a lot of success. I can't wait for it to see grow and reach millions of people so they can benefit, because I know the intention that you begin it with. And I'm so proud of you doing this work. And I'm very happy to be a small part of this big contribution, inshallah, that you're going to be making.
Inshallah. Thank you so much for your kind words, Mehvish. Mehvish, I know that in our lives, many times our lives have mirrored each other, but in some ways, obviously, we've gone on different directions. Can you tell our audience about your journey so far? How did you end up here, mashallah? Homeschooling, business lady, coach.
I think what actually happened is I started taking my life in my hands seriously only after I dived into the Quran course that I did once in 2011. And I think ever since then, the whole perspective kind of changed. Before that, I was a very um, YOLO type person. You only live one kind of a person. I wanted to live in the moment, give the best of the moment, enjoy that moment, and seal it there. And of
Hmm.
course, make a lot of memories. And I'm a highly invested person in whatever I'm doing if I'm really passionate about it. But
Yeah.
then, ever since the perspective changed about Quran and through Quran, and that's where I realized that we have a purpose. And not long after that, I realized diving into the subjects and studying more about it, like I was interested in dealing with humans. So I did my diploma in human resource. Then I did
Hmm.
a psychology course because I was always very interested in finding out more about how the mind works, how different personalities coordinate with each other. Then I did the Quran intensive course, which gave me a lot of clarity. Of course, it was just a very small thing that I did. I'm definitely not there that I've accomplished a really big goal in terms of Quran. That's
Yeah.
literally like scratching the surface amount of work. But that was good enough to give me that spectacle that I really needed. Ever since that happened, I think everything changed. Everything
Mm.
had a purpose. And then, boom, my God, when Khadija was born, that was it. There was no turning back. And I knew now I couldn't just YOLO types for sure. I
Yeah.
knew if I'm going to be doing something, it has to be validated by something for sure. Like I
Yeah.
can't be watching movies and telling my kids, don't watch it, you know?
Mm.
Or I can't be telling my kids, don't eat this, but actually eat it. Or I can't
Yeah.
be telling my kids, don't lie, but actually lie in front of them, in front of others.
Mm.
So everything started with the conscious, like my life revolved around conscious solutions. And the more honest and authentic I got from that angle, I think that got into all the segments and all the areas where I was fitting in. So if I started my book blogging business or a book curating business, what happened is it was reflected there. When I started homeschooling, because it was such a conscious decision, I I saw it started reflecting there. When I started coaching different sectors of women, if they're seeking homeschooling approach or if they're seeking some help with doing business with confidence, I was trying. I tried to help in however I could, and I'm still pursuing that. And Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, we've come a long way. And I see that kind of got me where I am. Being honest to yourself, being very true to yourself, being true to your maker, to your creator, because you can lie to anybody, you can fake to
Yeah.
anybody, but you can't lie to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I think that kind of that sincerity gave me a lot of strength. Remember when I called off the bank because I was, when I found out that it, um, working with riba or working with interest is haram, or
Yeah.
working in any conventional bank is haram, and how I had to go through a certain episodes at office to be able to
Yeah.
convince them of why I was actually taking that decision. And I
Yeah.
was mocked and I was asked repeatedly again and again, why are you doing it? It's not a good decision that you're making at such a young age. I was just about to give you a pay rise, and I'm like, okay, but I'm not in it for it. I'm
Yeah.
just not there. So I think all my life I kept looking for that sincerity in the right direction for the right reason. And after Quran, that kind of just clicked well.
Mm.
So Alhamdulillah, ever since I left that job, I think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has opened so many different channels of income for me. And I
Yeah.
think that's the reason that barakah reflects in every single thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, Alhamdulillah. So I think I'm pretty much enjoying how it's coming about. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. You're right about leaving the bank. I remember that we stayed there for more than 3 years, 3.5, 4 years. I think that was the time span that we were at the bank. And then we left within a month of each other. As soon as you realized that it's not the right thing, you came and you spoke to me and you said, I'm leaving. And those were well-paid jobs. We were amongst some of the most well-paid people in the industry. Like we were, as employers, the company, the corporation was very good. We were well compensated for our work. The perks were amazing. But you're right. You left that for the sake of Allah. And Alhamdulillah, I'm so glad to hear that you have seen those blessings come back to you tenfold. And I hope that they keep coming back, inshallah.
Ameen.
So
Ameen.
you've spoken about, your journey. If I want to summarize it in 3 words, it's humans, psychology, Quran. And from the Quran, it's like, okay, now I have my roadmap for my life, and that's where everything gets streamlined. And so
Def-
it's one thing that you said, which I really appreciated, was that whatever you do, you're very methodical about this. You want a specific philosophy to back that
yeah.
approach. So
Yeah.
if you
Definitely.
take an action or if you don't take an action, you want to be very clear on your reasons. I actually want to deep dive into that with you in regards to your homeschooling and hence the homeschooling coaching, plus the business coaching as well. So let's go down the homeschooling route first, and then we'll come to the business
Definitely.
coaching. How does that sound?
Definitely. That's okay. We can go ahead
Okay.
with that.
So with your homeschooling, what's your philosophy when it comes to homeschooling? How has that progressed over the years?
So I've tried unschooling, I've tried homeschooling, I've tried no schooling, and I'm pretty much convinced with whatever approach I'm taking and going forward, because I'm learning from my mistakes, I'm learning from the pattern that my children have developed, and I'm learning from the patterns that I can contribute in their life and where they're needed in what ways. One amazing thing that I've realized is, as parents, what we do is we want to take control of our life, of our children's life completely.
Yeah.
And that's insane, because we remove Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out of the equation, because we act as the forefront. We act as the forefront, and we're like, okay, we want to do this, we want to do this, we want to do this, we want to do this. But we don't realize we are just an asbab. I mean, with us or without us being in the picture, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is still going to be providing for our kids. You know what I mean to say?
Yeah.
So when I took that approach of being able to give my kids, so I replicated school at home, and then
Mm.
I eradicated it completely or partly, and we worked around it. We worked around it because we saw what was working out for us, for our lifestyle, for our family routine, what was working out, what is staying back, how we should go ahead. And it was all trial and error. And I was okay with giving it a time because we were figuring out a new path altogether.
Yeah. Yeah.
Why I wanted to get into homeschooling specifically was to be able to give my kids the flexibility of energy and time to be spent in the manner that they really want to. It was just
Mm.
not time, it was just not the money aspect also. I've
Yeah.
homeschooled my kids even when we were financially very low, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala provided us with means where I could not have expected it.
Mm.
So I'm really amazed on I look forward to seeking these miracles in life, so that it reinforms just not my belief but even my children's beliefs. You know what I mean
Yeah.
to say? So alhamdulillah, and when I know that's being taken care of, I act as a facilitator,
Mm.
not as that control freak which wants everything done, you know.
Yeah.
So of course there are some things that you have to parent your children.
Yeah.
That's
Of
not going
course.
out of the equation. But there is a certain specific path that we've chosen. And Alhamdulillah, like all the other children, our children are also growing. And you've experienced it yourself that you're also homeschooling and you're also taking this path of unschooling. And we kind of, keep checking upon each other. So it's always good to have community, and it's always good to check upon friends who are also in the same boat. So we
Yeah.
keep checking and seeing what needs to change. How do you need to parent, and how do you need to even facilitate their education? So, Alhamdulillah, we're enjoying that journey so far. Currently, we're working on a passion project of my children where they are working on the artisans fair, and I don't know if this is going to stem out or sprout out their first business professionally. So, it's it. This is what I love about homeschooling. You have the flexibility of trying out new things that's working out for you and clinging on to it for longer. And until now, when our kids are still younger, we still have some more time where they can enjoy that phase. Inshallah, eventually everybody has to grow up.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I loved your phrase flexibility of energy. That's something new. I've never heard that phrase before. But you're right. We do have flexibility in so many things, including in how we spend our energy, where we spend our energy on. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you coach your homeschooling clients, those who are interested in homeschooling? How do you help them get this flexibility of energy?
Okay. So basically, flexibility of energy is, let me just describe that in a bit first.
Yeah.
In, in I've realized with time and with a lot of blunders in my life that you cannot sustain or have the same energy throughout your day.
Yeah.
And if it is so for us as parents, you can imagine it can be different for even children who are different. Of course, the personalities are also different. So, me expecting my daughters to have the same amount of energy for all their subjects and all their projects is going to be insane, because that's something that's not even expected. Even when you go to office, you have a cutoff like 8 to 5, and you finish working on the most important projects in the morning, and then you kind of slow down and take it on a slow path. And spill over the projects which is not so necessary on the next day.
Mm.
So with homeschooling, what happens is, because you have those certain projects and you have the flexibility of time, you tend to think that you can manage it all. But you don't realize that you do have exhausted your energy in something or the other. So
Mm.
I realized that's not doable with my own, of course, experiences.
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah. So with regards to homeschooling moms, um, there's one thing that I can coach them, and there's another thing where they learn from their own experiences. So
Yeah.
far, I have, because the homeschooling subject is not so much prevalent in Asian continent, what is happening is they're only beginning to understand it more often, or the awareness is just beginning in that sector as of now.
Right.
So I'm only giving them at the moment where I've had clients, I have given them the base of how it can work, what is the
Mm.
trick, what's the part, what are the different parts you can take. There is no one part for education. Like schooling has one part,
Yeah.
homeschooling has different parts.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, and I've just begin my homeschooling coaching. So as and when I dive into such subjects, I will
Yeah.
take it forward, inshallah. Yeah.
Right. So you're basically saying that the flexibility of energy in terms of coaching a homeschooling mom, it's more of an advanced module and you've experienced
Yeah.
it. But at the moment, the people that you're getting as coaches in that in that aspect, they're either just beginning to homeschool or they're thinking about it. And so what
And
they need from you is very simple. You're basically the ABCs of homeschooling, and they need that hand holding about how do I begin. So for them, this comes later. That's what
this
you're
comes
saying.
later. And also, I've
Yeah.
had clients where they wanted to know, okay, what do we do about the transcripts? What do we
Yeah.
do about getting them into, what if they have to get back into conventional system? So I've
Yeah.
handled that kind of clients, and I've handled the ABC kind of clients.
Yes. Right.
We're
Right.
still we're still on a journey where I'm going to be meeting more moms. Inshallah, more
Yes.
appointments are scheduled, depending on the flexibility of my week. Inshallah, I do intend to take so, and then we will see how it goes. Inshallah, when we talk
Inshallah.
next on our podcast, I'll update you.
Yeah, inshallah. Best of luck, Nevish, with this. So, and I understand that for our listeners, I will say that you are based in the UAE and the regulations for home educating are different in the UAE than in the UK where I am. So it's really good to know that as a homeschooling coach, you are well versed in different aspects of the homeschooling world, basically. You can
And I'm
guide
still getting
parents.
better. Yeah, and
Yeah,
I'm
of
still
course, and you're still getting
yeah,
better. Of course,
yeah,
that goes without saying, of course.
yeah.
But at the, you can start them off when they're just starting off. You can help them if they're already homeschooling. They can come to you to improve their systems, and that's where the more advanced learning can come in. And you can also help them with the technical side of things, where they're
Yes.
worried about government regulations and higher studies and what do we do, and obviously then higher, for example, high schools and universities, they need transcripts and things like that. So that's really good for our viewers to know. And of course, I will be sharing your contact details below in the description. So anyone who feels that they need this service can reach out to you,
Inshallah.
inshallah. Okay, now let's this is so interesting. I mean, I could keep asking you, um, we could have this discussion in even more detail, but let's move on now to your business clients. Tell us about that. I know that you've been in business for some time. Can you share with our viewers and our listeners a little bit about your journey to becoming an entrepreneur and how you are now empowering other women to build their own businesses?
Okay, a little bit about myself. Firstly, the business that I'm doing at the moment.
Yeah.
I never knew, but subhanallah, there are few things that in your life that you do in your childhood and your teenage years that always hint where you could possibly go.
Hmm.
So I do recall when I had no friends, when I was in college, when I was in India, what I would do is hang out at a bookstore, crosswords. And because I had no friends, I would find myself around the books. And I didn't feel like I was missing onto something.
Hmm.
And that was enough. And over a period of time, I realized going back to books time and again, time and again, time and again. Like you in our initial conversation also, you said, you need some methodology behind a certain action. So I
Yeah.
realized I was always seeking that, alhamdulillah. So what
Yeah.
happened is, when I became a mom, I was looking for good resources for my daughter,
Yeah.
and I was getting too influenced with every time I would scroll through some book blogger and see how amazing these books are. But I was also intimidated because I can't have it all at once.
Yeah.
But what do I do? But these books are really good, and some of them are out of reach of UAE. So how do I really get my hands on it? And an idea sparked at that time. And at the same time, I was trying to see if I could go and work outside. But then I made a lot of dua, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really guided me to this.
Yeah.
My priority at the moment was my priority then was that my children are my first priority, business comes later, you know? So
Yeah.
Alhamdulillah, when Iman was just like my second born was just 3 months old, I took like about 10 books to a books for at an event, at an Eid event, and I had only 10 books and maybe 2 or 3 copies of each. And I read stories to the books to the kids out there, and that's where I realized it had a lot of power. And I said, okay, fine, this works. I want to do this, and I was sold out, but I was really happy. So that's when I started realizing that everybody buys books. Mothers buy a book, but the children buy books, the parents buy books, everybody buys books. But in this part of the region, what was happening is they were buying, but they were not reading, or they were
Mm.
buying, but the wrong book. So that's when I
Mm.
stepped in. I started reviewing books for them, and I wanted them to make a informed decision on my platform.
Mm.
All right, what they're really getting into. So I would review books on my page. They would go through the review and they would think, okay, this is the kind of book that I want to really read right now. So
Yeah.
that kind of pushed my business further and further, where the trust factor was established. And now I started projecting the homeschooling journey on my page as well,
Mm.
because I wanted to diversify. When I started doing that, what happened is a lot of moms wanted to seek out how did they go about this? And then I said,
Mm.
okay, fine, let's branch out depending on my flexibility of how can I really take it there.
Mm.
Slowly and steadily, then I was approached and asked, how do we go about business coaching? And then I was like, okay, let's go ahead. If it's coming my way, I was certain and I was confident that I can do it because I was still doing it and I'm
Mm.
still doing it, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
So business coaching happened where I saw. So when I had the first discovery call with my potential client at that moment, I realized she was feeling very, very, very. Um, the confidence element was missing. She was suffering from doing. She wanted to do a lot of things, but she was not
Mm.
able to figure out what to do. She
Mm.
wanted to. She wanted to do things, but for the wrong reasons.
Okay.
She wanted to do things, but for the wrong reasons. Uh, and I had read somewhere, if you don't define your causes very well, or if you don't have your whys sorted out, even the right answers can become wrong.
Powerful. Yeah.
So I'm like, because you're trying to, so her whys were actually, when I asked her, why do you want to really get onto this business? She said, I want to become financially independent so I can do this, 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 this. And I
Yeah.
was like, what you've defined to me is what you will do when you get the money.
Mm.
But you haven't given me the why as yet.
Mm.
So she understood that element of why. And I said, if you're going to be telling me that you want to do business because you want to go for Hajj, that's your personal motive. That's your
Yeah.
selfish motive, not something where you're filling the gap, where you're making a difference for somebody else. Then I had to
Mm.
explain it to her. Money is not the goal, money is the byproduct of the service that you're actually offering.
Yeah.
So I said, if you chase money, it's going to run away. And then I
Mm.
said, don't do. So I had to fix a lot of things, and that only
Yeah.
happened with conversing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, And Alhamdulillah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had guided me to do a particular courses in my life, and some of these things were also my own reflective thinking.
Yeah.
When I started taking course, I would not just believe everything that I was taking.
Mm.
So that's where I add a different touch to it, understanding that we are Islam bound.
Mm.
We cannot we cannot do a certain few things for the sake of a few grants.
Mm.
You know what I mean to say? So
Mm.
if certain things are like a no, 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 you don't have to.
Yeah.
You have to rely on the power that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you in your own boundaries. And
Yeah.
that is enough.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now at the moment, what we're working on is how do we install that confidence? How do we bring out and figure out our niche? How are we trying to fill out the gap? You see there is a gap, fill it in. And then I
Mm.
told her, until you keep trying X, Y, Z, we will not know what works out.
Yeah.
You may think that my niche is working out, looking so glamorous to you, but you
Mm.
never know if you can invest so much energy and time and money into it.
Mm.
So don't go, or maybe more so, are you really enjoying it or not?
Yeah.
So we're taking that part now, and I'm enjoying it because I'm not blocking myself with a lot of clients. I have given myself, with my time routine, with my kids, my priority of house. I still cook. I
Yeah.
still cook meals at home. I still tend to my kids. I still have to
Yeah.
listen to their hips. I still have to take them, pick them, drop them.
Yeah.
Um, I still have to do a lot of all those things. I still have to make it to the gym myself alone
Mm.
without kids, because
Yeah.
everybody thinks when we are homeschooling,
Yeah.
our kids are with us everywhere. Well,
Yeah.
not necessarily.
Mm.
So depending on the flexibility of my time, my energy, my routine, I'm trying to fill in where I can and give my best in the ways I can.
Yeah, that's amazing, Mehvish. Thank you so much for sharing with us. So it really sounds like you are such an ethical business coach for Muslim women who are either they are entrepreneurs and they need some guidance, or they're starting out with their business idea. So obviously we can see that you are very faith-based and everything is related to the Quran. So does that mean that you work only with Muslim women, or do you work with other women as well from other
No, I can
backgrounds?
work. Your ethics are going to define your business. So I can't work with ethically with other than in Muslim women's. But what happens
Yes.
is our and especially now, so when everybody has seen what Islam really is after what has happened with Gaza, I
Yeah.
don't think anybody has a single doubt and any single principle that we are actually talking about in Islam, any confusion about it. Our
Yeah.
integrity is at that peak if if we are so authentic and sincere to our creator,
Yeah.
we cannot not fool a human, or
Yeah.
we cannot miss that boundaries,
Yeah. Yeah.
because you're always under the watchful eyes of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And
Yeah.
for sure you can't flip things around. He's always
Yeah.
aware.
Yeah.
So Alhamdulillah, I think we can never go wrong with our principles. So I can definitely work with Muslim women. And of course, we can always work ethically around the same principles um, with non-Muslim women as well.
With non-Muslim women. Exactly. And the example that you've given, the example of Gaza is so correct that it's not only Muslims who are standing with Gaza. And we see this on the internet all the time, right? That you don't have to be Muslim to stand with Gaza, you just have to be human. And that ties into what you were saying about principles. It's all about principles and ethics. It doesn't matter if the person in front of you is a Muslim or not, you would still act from the same place of integrity and principles, and you would guide them from the same place. And of course, they would appreciate that.
Yeah.
Now, because we're talking about, labels
One more
such
thing
as
that I would
Muslim.
like to, if I can add
Yes,
just one more thing.
of course.
If I have come so far, I've only
Yeah,
come so far because Islam has defined and given us these boundaries.
yeah,
Uh, this is one thing that I would like to really make it a point. I mean, this did not come because I'm a human. This came because Islam has already given us these principles that we have to act upon. Now,
yeah,
who acts at what level? What are their struggles? That's a
yeah,
complete different story, and that's with their maker. And Allah
yeah,
is aware of whatever you're trying. So
yeah,
if I'm doing this business, because it's already been done, because Prophet Muhammad already did business, uh, and he set these principles. So we have some rules that we cannot break. Like, no matter you're doing business or no business, you can't lie. No matter
Yeah.
if you've given a word to a client, you can't take it back.
Mm.
Okay, even if you've signed a deal or not. So there are some set rules that have already been given. And subhanAllah, even just for that matter, when you're getting into any agreement, it is mentioned in the Quran that you have to actually write it down with a witness around.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you see these things are clearly defined,
Yeah.
how can it's only meant to beautify any business, any relationship, any friendship, anything, subhanallah. So I just wanted to
Yeah.
add that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Basically, what you're trying to say is that the principles that you act from, they are not your own principles. They are not man-made principles. They come from Allah. And that's why
Yeah.
they're so solid that they would work with anyone. And it doesn't
Yeah.
matter if the person follows the same faith or
Exactly.
not.
Thank you so much for wording it well.
You're most welcome. So I was going to ask another question, but since you said this, about how this foundation is basically universal across your work, regardless of whether you're working with your business clients or with your homeschooling community clients. If you take a step back and you look at your clients in general, the women that you work with, do you think there are any challenges that your clients face which are universal to them? What are the most common challenges that your clients face in terms of mindset, in terms of reaching
Yeah.
their goals? What would you say to that?
Okay, clarity is one thing.
Clarity.
Uh,
Okay. The lack of clarity.
Low self-esteem.
Mm,
Um, and the third thing that I see them, what they do really often is they compare themselves with the other person on the screen very often.
mm,
So I get asked this question very often. Even today, when even today when somebody messaged me and she said, "I really love how you're taking your family, your business, your children. I love how you're taking it all about, and I wish I could do this someday." While I love to be that example, I
mm,
also want to make it very clear that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us a particular mindset and a particular set of energy, not particular set, my energy and my mindset is coming from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I did not work on that. Um, you remember when we were in office, everybody would tell me, uh, when we were asked what's so good about you, what's the good about the other person who's sitting next to you, and everybody would say you're a very positive oriented person and we love your positivity. And I was like,
mm,
man, I didn't even do anything about it. I
mm,
mean, if somebody's having good presentation skills, they've worked on it. If somebody's
mm,
saying they're very professional, they're very perfectionist, they've done
mm,
something to get that title. And I'm like,
mm,
positivity? I'm like, I didn't even do anything about it. So
mm.
how are you attributing that to me?
You were
But
just
then
born a ray of
I
sunshine.
was just born, but other people are not
Yeah.
born with that. So their challenge is how to be how to be positive in tough times. My
That's a very
challenge could
good
be
point.
my challenge could be completely different. My challenge over here is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me a very good family. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given me uh, high, very high pitched energy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made me a very big visionary. But if I toss it up in the air and I will say, okay, I don't want to do anything about it, I just want to chill and not do anything about it. If Allah has made my life easy, I need to
Mm.
use it productively.
Yeah,
You know what I mean
100%.
to say? He's
Yeah,
going to ask me, okay, I gave you a very good husband. What did you do with your life?
yeah,
I gave you a good set of children. Your
yeah,
children are not ill. They're not,
yeah,
they everybody's children are challenging. What I'm trying to say is that it's not as bad. I mean, if you compare, let's go back to Gaza again. Their
yeah,
challenges are completely different altogether.
yeah,
And while I'm speaking about it, they're actually demonstrating it with their action. You
yeah.
know, maybe I don't even have an ounce of an action of Iman that they really have. But what
Mm.
I'm trying to tell you is that I can't compare my Iman to their Iman.
Yeah.
Subhanallah. So this is what I'm trying to tell you. Most women do this and they feel really bad about where they're coming and they're like, I can't do this. I say, you don't
Mm.
have to do it.
Yeah.
If you're being well taken care of, if your interest is only looking after your family, if you're interested in making a good meal, and if your interest is taking a good fresh nap and being there for your family, that is okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
that is really okay.
Yeah.
And if you have a difficult husband, you don't have to compare my life with yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So this is where I think most of the women, clarity, uh,
Yeah.
then their roles are not defined very clearly.
Hmm.
I think that is another problem that we're facing.
Yeah.
Women want to be too much men, and men are wanting to take a back seat and becoming too relaxed.
Hmm.
So, I think all of these issues in the community, because men are not doing anything, the women have to step up, and the women step up, and the men take a back seat, and they're like, okay, what do we do? You know.
Hmm.
So I think all of these are technically all the issues, and then of course it affects their health, their
Yeah.
relationship, and it just spirals on.
Yeah. So the if I'm just going to recap the common challenges that you gave us. You said that the roles are not defined. That can be potentially a very controversial statement. So I'm going to park that for now. We can have a whole conversation just around that. Then you mentioned a lack of clarity, low self-esteem, and comparison. And you explained very well how basically comparison is the thief of joy. And you know how you were, alhamdulillah, born a ray of sunshine. But you illustrated very well what you meant by that. You keep things very real. That's what I can see, and you're very honest and upfront. Like, listen, I have this privilege, and I'm very conscious of using this privilege in the right way. And I assume that's what you do with your clients. Really show them the mirror, and you tell
Yes,
them instead of looking into the screen, look into the mirror and see your privileges and your goals and your dreams, not someone else's. And then
def-
you guide them from there and help them reach wherever it is that they need to reach, not by someone
exactly,
else's.
exactly.
Now, because you were talking about, how different people and stuff, I know that before we began recording, we were talking about high sensitivity, we were briefly discussing it. And obviously, I identify as a highly sensitive woman. I do feel that I am on the higher end of the spectrum of high sensitivity. And funnily enough, I don't know why, we've just never had this conversation before. I think because we both just accepted each other the way we were, and we never felt the need to delve into our labels. But this is interesting. Let's do this. So,
Yeah.
what do you think about high sensitivity? And what do you think about me in terms of the high sensitivity?
So I think I've seen you at different stages of life, right? So
Yeah.
I've seen you really vulnerable at one stage and really struggling to make, uh, you know, end the day, basically, really struggling to exist, basically. I've seen you at that end, and I've also
Yeah.
seen how you really worked towards it, and I've seen how you grew, and I've seen the kind of work that you're contributing because you took that path. You know what I mean to say? Or because that path was defined for you.
Mm,
And you had to work, you have to
mm,
walk and you have to experience this, and you had to actually feel it and come forward and acknowledge this. Okay, I am this. But
mm,
there's nothing wrong. And initially, what I remember is that I think when it did not make sense to you, you would kind of repel with that kind of identity.
mm.
But when you acknowledged it, when you accepted it, it kind of
Yeah.
became your superpower.
Mm,
And when you understood that I'm not the only one who actually is like that, I think you started channelizing it in the right way. And
yeah.
that was really, really, really cool. I don't know. Does tell me one thing. Does high sensitivity also? I remember I don't know if I would be speaking to you or when I would be eating something, you would really get. Does this also come under HSP?
It might. So sensitivity to sounds, definitely that is part of it. I
Stop,
cannot,
stop, stop.
yeah, I cannot
You
deal with
remember?
the
She's like, Mehvish,
sound
are
of
you talking
chewing.
to me? And are you eating and talking to me? I was like, yes,
Yes.
I am, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, fine, I can't do this. So it
Yeah.
was really nice that you
Yeah.
told me what was not working out well with you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I knew, and I really admire that about you, Alhamdulillah. So even if things did not make sense then, but you had those boundaries communicated really clearly from the very beginning, not just with me, I think with everybody, your
Mm.
parents, your husband, our colleagues. I took that a lot from you. I mean, I really looked up to you on that grounds.
Oh, thank
And I
you.
was like, oh my God, can somebody really be so clear? and
Mm.
so amazing. I mean, I was like, oh wow, I wish I could do that, you know.
Yeah. Oh, thank
So
you so much. That makes me so happy. Thank you.
no, of course. So I think a lot of inspiration came from there. I was like, when I saw you comfortable in your own skin, and I
Mm.
was like, okay. And I really liked how you looked after yourself even when it was not making sense to you.
Mm.
You know, you were very strong and opinionated about, no, I don't like it this way, so I'm not going to do it this way. And when things started making like, and as per that logic, that made really good sense because we will often discuss so many aspects
Yeah.
for the same issue. And
Yeah.
I still remember. So I think I do see you there, and I think you've converted that into your superpower, and you have stemmed out differently. And that's why when you're working with different women, they can really resonate with you, and
Mm.
they can really see. And once you've taken that part, you're more convinced of how it's going to really help the other person. Of course, you're going to
Yeah.
try, and
Yeah.
if they
Yeah.
work out, then it works wonders.
Yeah. Thank you so much, ma'am. Just makes that makes me feel so happy. That makes me feel really seen. That yes, high sensitivity. It's a personality trait, right? And it this doesn't give me a license to sort of be more reactive. Of course, it does make me more reactive, but that just means I need to work harder on sort of curbing that kind of
Yeah,
response.
because I do remember when you're talking about, uh, the good thing about it is that you would realize,
Yeah.
oh, this thing, what I did was not good. I think I have to go back
Mm.
and mend it. So I
Yeah.
think that consciousness made you really real, and
Mm.
people around you could see that. Okay, it's not coming because she's intending it really that way. It's coming because
Mm.
she's born with these sensitivities, and we need to just
Mm.
realize how do we work around it, you know. So alhamdulillah, I think that's really amazing.
Yeah, it's definitely been a learning curve, trying to balance surviving in a world which is not built for the highly sensitive. But it's, alhamdulillah, as you've said, it's made me stronger in the long run. Let's say I come to you. I'll, as a homeschooler and an entrepreneur, right? Would your approach to working with someone like me, would your approach change in any way? Do you think that would impact your work and your working relationship with me as your client?
I think working with no, I think you work differently with different kind of people. The reason why I'm saying this so confidently is because sometimes, okay, what happens is in a coaching or in this kind of when a high sensitive woman is approaching, especially somebody like you
Yeah.
necessarily don't need guidance on how do you go about things. You
Mm.
just you need an extra brain to think with you.
Mm.
You know what I mean to say? So our conversations can actually give you that clarity, and you can
Yeah.
take the path more convinced on how do you
Yes.
want to go ahead.
Yeah.
So I think acknowledging you at your point and thinking alongside you is a good enough reason, is good enough, as a path that we can take. Not necessarily we have to go by, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do this. No, not really. You know what you need to do. We just need to sit and talk out and see how we can really work this out. And as
Mm.
mothers, I think we have exhausted our brain cells so much. We definitely need a lending brain. Um, Somebody who knows you better, somebody who can
Yeah.
really help you better, somebody who can really give you that energy, you
Yeah.
know. So I think that's how I would really work around with you, you
Yeah.
know.
That's amazing. You've basically hit the nail on the head with how you would work with a highly sensitive woman. And I feel confident in saying that anyone who's listening in and who feels that they are highly sensitive and they would benefit from working with you, I think they can fearlessly contact you. Because I was actually speaking to someone today before this recording. I was in another call with another with a client, and she said that what she wants most of all is to be heard. And you didn't know that. So this isn't something that we've had a conversation about. This question that I asked you just now, it was a spontaneous question. And what you've said mirrors exactly what that lady said she needs. She needs as a highly sensitive, and I agree with that. As a highly sensitive woman, what you really need is to be heard because you have such intense feelings. And it's amazing that you've understood that. And so that's how you would work with them. Now, I'm just going to briefly ask about writing. Being an expressive writing coach, I can't let you go without talking about writing. Do you think writing has a role in personal development or professional development in either of your spheres, in the entrepreneurship world, in the homeschooling world? Do you think that has a role in terms of goal attainment, dreams achievement?
Of course, I think, okay, I'll get back to the book that I was reading.
Yeah.
It's called Get It Done. I'm forgetting the name of the author. So what
Hmm.
he said is, brain is not for storing information.
Hmm.
A brain is a tool where your ideas, creative ideas emerge, solutions emerge. And if you don't park your ideas and your solutions or anything that comes up of very reflective understanding about something, if you don't park it somewhere, it's going to disappear.
Hmm.
So now, whether you write it down or you note it down, it definitely needs to be stored somewhere. Why
Right.
the element of writing really plays an important role is because all your senses are involved in, you're involved completely. Your brain, your eyes, your hands, your heart. You can't just scribble. You know what I mean to say? So when you're writing, everything is synced in really well.
Hmm.
And it's so amazing because I've had people, or personally myself, I write when I'm really emotional about something and I need to vent it out. And
Yeah.
I know I cannot go to XYZ. And I know this is not the time maybe to call you or,
Yeah.
I can't do that and speak about it. Otherwise, we usually do that. I bring out my book and I write.
Yeah.
I write what I want to write.
Hmm.
And I ended up with a dua.
Hmm.
This is what I do because I'm like, okay, because I'm in such high intensity of emotions, I don't want to let it loose because every single word that I'm going to be making in that dua has the potential to reach the sky.
Hmm.
And I don't want to miss it,
Hmm.
because
Yeah.
you're in such a desperate situation
Yeah.
and you definitely want to make sure whatever you're seeking at that moment needs solution. And And the other thing, what I've done is to inspire myself, I made a list of things that I wanted to buy for myself,
Hmm.
like an Apple Watch, like a Swarovski small ring, you know. Uh, I've made a list of these things that I want to really get. And I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, but writing itself gave me so much pleasure.
Hmm.
And I was like, oh, wow, amazing. It almost felt like, oh, I'm achieving this, you
Yeah.
know.
Yes.
So I think writing has a very therapeutic uh, way in achieving all your goals and all your dreams.
Yeah.
And going back to it again and again and seeing, because what happens is we forget, our brain forgets, but the papers that you've written on, it's
Yeah.
still there. So you
Yeah.
will be surprised if all the duas that you made actually came true. You'll be
Absolutely.
surprised. I was crying for such a petty thing. Oh my
Yeah.
God, unbelievable. So
Hmm.
I ponder on those things very often. It's my favorite pastime thing.
Oh, so you're a thinker. That's amazing, Mehvish. You've told us that you use writing in two ways. So first of all, you use writing for emotional regulation so that you don't go out and you don't lash out at someone else in the throes of emotion. But then at the end of your writing episode, you harness the power of those emotions and you turn that into a prayer and you write down that prayer. That's amazing. That's a brilliant, brilliant idea for anyone who is listening in. And I would love to try that as well. Um, what is one key piece of advice you would give to our audience before we sign off?
I would like them to be authentic to themselves. I would really want them to seek out what their role is in life and what their energy levels are
Mm-hmm.
and what they can offer at that pace, at that time, and keep life really simple.
Mm-hmm.
I think I'll leave it there because I think social media has complicated our lives a lot. We want to do a lot of things. We don't slow down. We don't reflect. We don't a lot of things that we preach, we don't really do.
Hmm.
So I think we need to step back
Yeah.
and I think take the power of what you have at the moment, because every single time when I see Gaza, this is what
Yeah.
comes. This is a strong message that hits me,
Yeah.
that they are crying for their children, and we have our children in front of us. So hugging them, holding them, talking to them, cherishing them. And I was also listening to the podcast that you did with Hina, which you published today. And she said
Yeah.
something really amazing that really struck me. Was she said we have family goals, and I thought that was really amazing. I said I don't have a family goal,
Hmm.
and I said I need to be working on a family goal.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're all going in different directions. You
True.
know,
Very true.
I think I don't think I ended up with one message. I think there was so many things that I ended up with, but
Of
then
course, absolutely. But the more value we provide, the better. So thank you so much for that.
no problem. And always, the last thing is always find yourself somebody like Javeria.
Inshallah, inshallah. Amin. Thank you.
Amin.
It
And
was amazing to have you on the podcast, Mehvish. Inshallah, I hope to see you a lot more than this, hopefully on Instagram lives and on future episodes,
oh,
inshallah.
that,
We have so much to discuss. We have so much to share with the world. And in today's day and age, it's so easy to share whatever little nuggets of wisdom we have, whatever little lessons we learn along life. So hopefully we will continue doing that, inshallah.
okay, I'm going to send you the box of chocolates for giving me such a wonderful introduction, bribing
Oh,
you with it. It's like, okay.
thank you very much.
One thing that struck me, the last thing that I would actually like to say is bring Quran in your life
Hmm.
and bring Quran to life. I
Bring Quran
think
to life.
that
Yeah.
will be a game changer. You can't change for people, but you can definitely change for the sake of Allah.
Yeah.
And I think nothing has the potential to change your core as much as
Yeah.
Quran and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So
Absolutely.
get your core sorted, and I think Allah will show you your path. You don't need
Absolutely.
anything.
Absolutely.
I think that's about it. I think we've done enough.
I think, you know what, Mehvish, we have definitely entered a new era of our lives because we have become those desi aunties who say goodbye for hours and hours and they keep coming up with more topics to talk about. So we've definitely entered the auntie phase. And look how mature we've become. If we were having this conversation 10 years ago, I think we both would have been in fits of laughter and all of the topics would have gone out of the window and we'd be talking about something entirely nonsensical and unrelated. But anyway, definitely thank you so much for being here, Mehvish. I've had a great time. And inshallah, we will talk about our different stories and tangents very soon. Bye
Inshallah.
bye.
Chalo. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam. If you're a highly sensitive woman and you're looking for guidance to help you along the journey of achieving your dreams, then do visit my website www.penandheal.com or send me an email support@penandheal.com.